The EU's ultimatum: transfer your EV tech or leave Europe. China's response. Over the past several years, the Chinese electric vehicle sector has experienced explosive growth, capturing the attention and wallets of countless European buyers. This surge has gradually chipped away at the market dominance of Europe's traditional automotive giants. Faced with the reality of losing ground in their own backyard, European Union officials decided they could no longer stand on the sidelines. In response, the EU has aligned itself with American-led efforts to curb China's automotive ambitions through various restrictive measures. Yet despite attempts to increase tariffs, launch probes into alleged subsidies, and hamper the battery supply chain through regulatory pressure, Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers have refused to retreat. Now, the European Union has delivered what may be its most aggressive demand yet. Surrender your automotive technologies, or face expulsion from the European market. The central question remains: which specific innovations has Brussels targeted, and how will Beijing respond? If you enjoy this type of analysis, please subscribe to stay updated with our latest investigations. Let's explore today's topic: the rise of electric mobility. Electric vehicles have become woven into the fabric of modern life. Walk through any urban neighborhood or suburban parking lot, and you'll encounter them regularly. Even if you haven't made the switch yourself, it's likely someone close to you already drives one. Industry data indicates that approximately 17 million electric vehicles rolled off production lines worldwide during 2024, with major players like Tesla, BYD, and others leading the charge. Among those units, Chinese factories produced roughly 14.5 million vehicles, representing approximately 65% of global output. Put simply, nearly 2 out of every 3 electric vehicles manufactured anywhere on Earth came from China. Throughout the first 10 months of the current year, Chinese automakers have maintained this commanding position without showing signs of slowing down. This remarkable pace of development hasn't gone unnoticed in Western capitals. As early as September 2024, Washington implemented regulations prohibiting the importation of certain connected vehicle technologies originating from China. The restrictions cover software and hardware enabling features such as wireless connectivity, Bluetooth pairing, and satellite communication systems. Essentially, the technologies that allow modern vehicles to interact with external networks. American officials justified these measures by citing national security concerns and potential privacy vulnerabilities. Yet critics point out an obvious problem. Removing these fundamental capabilities would essentially strip vehicles of features that have been standard for nearly 2 decades, effectively turning back the technological clock. But America's actions didn't stop there. In May 2024, the United States revived the Section 301 trade investigation framework and dramatically increased tariffs on Chinese-manufactured electric vehicles and battery components. The levy on complete electric vehicles quadrupled from 25% to a staggering 100%. Additional duties on power batteries, auxiliary batteries, component parts, natural graphite, and other essential minerals were also raised by 25 percentage points, with implementation dates staggered between 2024 and 2026. These measures directly inflated battery production costs and made raw materials significantly more expensive. Washington also issued warnings to other nations, allowing Chinese automotive companies to establish manufacturing facilities on their soil to circumvent these restrictions might result in those countries facing higher American tariffs as well. Europe's technology demand. Now the European Union appears to be pursuing an even more aggressive strategy, demanding that China hand over its core electric vehicle technologies or face exclusion from European markets. What prompted this escalation? In October of the current year, EU policymakers began evaluating a new regulatory framework that would impose specific conditions on Chinese companies seeking to invest in strategically important European sectors. These proposed requirements include maintaining certain minimum percentages of European-sourced components, employing local workforces, establishing joint ventures with European partners, and, most significantly, transferring technological knowledge in fields including renewable energy, automotive manufacturing, and battery production. The rapid ascent of Chinese manufacturers has created intense competitive pressure on European industrial sectors. Through these policy instruments, the European Union hopes to ensure it won't be sidelined during this massive industrial transformation, while simultaneously securing its position in the future electric vehicle economy. Currently, Brussels is still evaluating whether these regulations are practical and enforceable. For a region with Europe's deep automotive heritage, one might reasonably ask, if building electric vehicles isn't particularly difficult for established manufacturers, why would the EU resort to demanding technology transfers from China? The answer lies in understanding that while assembling complete vehicles may be straightforward, the real technological battleground and China's most significant advantage lies in power battery systems. What European policymakers truly covet are the advanced battery technologies that Chinese automakers have developed. The heart of the electric vehicle is, without a doubt, the power battery. This vital organ serves as the core of any electric vehicle. These sophisticated systems deliver high power output, exceptional reliability, rapid charge and discharge cycles, and impressive energy density, characteristics that truly set them apart from the batteries we use in our phones and laptops. Compared to conventional internal combustion powertrains, advanced battery systems offer a whole host of benefits. Zero tailpipe emissions, superior energy conversion efficiency, instantaneous torque delivery, seamless integration with renewable energy sources, and substantially lower operating expenses over the vehicle's lifetime. Furthermore, battery technology is advancing at an extraordinary pace, and these power systems extend far beyond just automotive applications. The market potential really spans numerous industries, and China has established itself as the undisputed leader in this domain. For instance, consider CATL, or Contemporary Amperex Technology Company Limited, which was established in 2011 and is based in Fujian Province. This company specializes in manufacturing lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles and energy storage applications. As of 2025, CATL commands approximately 38% of the worldwide power battery market. Its products are integrated into vehicles produced by numerous international automotive brands, and the company continues pushing boundaries in next-generation battery development. Beyond CATL, other Chinese battery manufacturers like BYD have achieved remarkable success in global markets, steadily expanding their international footprint and influence. Now, while Europeans can rightfully claim credit for inventing the automobile, and legendary brands such as Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Volkswagen have dominated global automotive markets for more than a century, their expertise primarily lies in traditional vehicle engineering. As the industry shifts toward electrification and sustainable energy, European manufacturers have struggled to maintain their competitive edge in battery technology. Throughout the entire electric vehicle power system supply chain, from extracting raw materials, through intermediate processing and battery module assembly to end-of-life recycling, China maintains leadership positions across multiple critical stages. In both manufacturing costs and production scale, Chinese battery systems clearly outperform their European counterparts. Some industry analyses suggest that batteries manufactured in China cost approximately 30% less than comparable units produced in Europe. Perhaps more concerning for European ambitions, the continent's domestic battery production capacity remains woefully inadequate. In terms of independent manufacturing capability, Europe lacks not only a comprehensive industrial ecosystem, but also faces severe skilled labor shortages. Building a fully self-sufficient domestic battery industry represents a monumental challenge that will require years, if not decades, to overcome. For electric vehicles, the battery pack represents one of the most expensive, technically complex, and supply chain intensive components. European Union officials understand perfectly well that if they're only beginning to catch up now, achieving technological parity with countries like China in core electric vehicle domains would prove extremely difficult and time-consuming. This reality explains why Brussels has chosen what appears to be a shortcut, attempting to compel Chinese companies to simply hand over their hard-won technological advantages. However, it's difficult to imagine any Chinese automaker willingly agreeing to such demands. In reality, this isn't the European Union's first attempt to extract core electric vehicle technologies from China. Back in July 2024, the EU imposed anti-subsidy countermeasures targeting Chinese-manufactured electric vehicles. Depending on the specific brand and model, these additional tariffs exceeded 35% in certain cases. When combined with the existing 10% standard import duty on automobiles, the total tax burden became quite substantial. It seems paradoxical that a political union committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2035 would implement policies that effectively force consumers to pay premium prices for electric vehicles, the very technology needed to reach those climate goals. The EU's official justification centered on claims that Chinese government subsidies to its domestic EV industry might distort fair competition in European markets. On the surface, this rationale appears defensible. However, according to information that has emerged, the European Union had actually extended invitations to Chinese automakers to establish electric vehicle manufacturing facilities within Europe, even offering local subsidies and incentives, provided that Chinese companies agreed to share portions of their technical expertise. From imposing punitive tariffs on Chinese EVs to repeatedly encouraging companies to set up local production, to the current technology transfer ultimatums, these actions don't appear to be disconnected policy decisions. Rather, they seem to form part of a coordinated strategic approach. Naturally, China has refused to capitulate to such coercive arrangements. Based on available information, Savolt Energy has already suspended its battery manufacturing projects in Brandenburg and Saarland, Germany, effectively pulling back from localized European production. Leapmotor has similarly terminated its contract manufacturing agreement in Poland and canceled plans to produce its second model, the B10, at that facility. Meanwhile, Great Wall Motors has shuttered its European headquarters in Munich and paused further expansion efforts across EU markets. While these moves don't yet constitute a complete withdrawal, they clearly signal that Chinese automotive manufacturers are strategically reducing their direct European operations. Given the current dynamics, it appears highly unlikely that the European Union's pressure campaign to force technology transfers from China will succeed. What remains particularly noteworthy, however, is that despite facing multiple layers of tariffs and regulatory obstacles throughout Europe, Chinese automakers have actually experienced growth between 2024 and 2025. Current data reveals that Chinese brands now represent approximately 6% of all new vehicle registrations across the European Union, double the 2.9% market share recorded in 2024. Meanwhile, sales of Chinese-branded electric vehicles in Europe have surged by roughly 91% year-over-year. This raises a compelling question. Is Europe unable to function without Chinese electric vehicles, or are Chinese EVs dependent on accessing European markets? Mutual dependence or strategic advantage? From my analysis, this represents a relationship of mutual interdependence, though the dependencies aren't perfectly symmetrical. Europe relies substantially on China's comprehensive supply chain for batteries and their constituent raw materials. China dominates the upstream sectors of mining, refining, and manufacturing critical materials. During 2023 alone, Europe imported 438,000 electric vehicles from China, representing a total trade value of approximately 9.7 billion euros. Simultaneously, roughly 40% of China's electric vehicle exports were destined for European markets, making Europe China's single largest export destination for EVs. That said, there are clear indications that China is gradually diversifying away from European market dependence, particularly as tariffs and regulatory restrictions create increasing friction. When examining the broader picture, Europe's reliance on China's critical supply chain infrastructure actually runs deeper than China's dependence on European market access. After all, China has successfully constructed a complete and vertically integrated industrial chain. From lithium resource extraction and large-scale battery manufacturing, to electric motor research and development and autonomous driving technology, Chinese automakers now possess mastery over virtually every core technology within the electric vehicle value chain. For instance, CATL controls 37% of the global power battery market, while BYD's internally developed IGBT chips cost approximately 60% less than imported alternatives. It's precisely this mature and deeply integrated industrial ecosystem that provides China with efficient, stable EV production capabilities alongside significant advantages in cost management. This industrial chain superiority ultimately translates into pricing advantages, enabling European consumers to purchase high-quality electric vehicles at more accessible price points. Consider the BYD Dolphin as an example. It retails for approximately €32,400 in European markets, while Volkswagen's ID.4 commands a price around €37,000. The performance specifications and features between these two vehicles are remarkably similar, yet the price differential amounts to roughly 13%. This value proposition represents one of the primary reasons many European consumers are choosing Chinese electric vehicles over traditional European brands. The real cost of protectionism. Yet whether through elevated tariffs or other forms of economic sanctions, the parties who may ultimately bear the heaviest burden are ordinary European consumers. When protective measures artificially inflate prices, it's everyday citizens who pay the premium at the dealership. When regulatory barriers slow the adoption of cleaner transportation technologies, it's communities that continue breathing polluted air. When political posturing takes precedence over pragmatic policy, it's working families whose transportation budgets suffer. The situation presents European policymakers with a genuine dilemma. On one hand, protecting domestic automotive industries and maintaining technological sovereignty represents legitimate policy objectives. On the other hand, achieving ambitious climate targets requires rapid electric vehicle adoption, which becomes more difficult when policies make these vehicles more expensive and less accessible. Looking forward, the standoff between the European Union and China over electric vehicle technology represents more than just a trade dispute. It reflects deeper questions about industrial policy, technological development, and economic competition in the 21st century. Europe's traditional automotive powerhouses built their dominance during the era of internal combustion engines, but the transition to electrification has redistributed competitive advantages. China's lead in battery technology didn't emerge overnight. It resulted from coordinated industrial policy, massive investments in research and development, strategic control over raw material supply chains, and the rapid scaling of manufacturing capacity. European manufacturers, despite their engineering excellence, were slower to pivot toward electrification and now find themselves playing catch-up in critical technological domains. The question of whether Chinese automotive companies will surrender core technologies in exchange for market access seems to have a clear answer. They won't. Technology transfer under duress rarely benefits the party being pressured, and Chinese companies understand that their technological advantages represent their primary competitive moat. Giving away these advantages would undermine the very foundation of their market success. Meanwhile, European manufacturers face a difficult path forward. Building domestic battery production capacity requires enormous capital investment, skilled workforce development, securing reliable raw material supplies, and years of iterative improvement to match Chinese efficiency and cost structures. The EU's regulatory approach appears designed to buy time for European companies to develop competitive capabilities, but whether protective measures can actually accelerate that development remains questionable. The consumer perspective. For consumers, the calculus is relatively straightforward. If Chinese electric vehicles offer comparable or superior features, performance, and reliability at significantly lower prices, rational buyers will choose them regardless of their country of origin. Brand loyalty matters, but value matters more, especially when household budgets face pressure from inflation and economic uncertainty. The growth of Chinese EV market share in Europe, despite increasing tariffs, suggests that even with artificially inflated prices, these vehicles remain competitive. This reality underscores just how significant China's cost advantages are. They can absorb substantial tariff burdens and still offer compelling value propositions to European buyers. As the electric vehicle revolution continues accelerating globally, the competitive dynamics between Chinese manufacturers and traditional automotive powerhouses will likely intensify. The European Union's attempts to leverage market access for technology transfer represents just one chapter in this evolving story. How China responds, whether European manufacturers can successfully develop competitive battery capabilities, and how consumers navigate these choices will shape the automotive landscape for decades to come. So here's the question for you. Would you consider purchasing a Chinese-manufactured electric vehicle? The answer may say something important about how market forces, national policies, and consumer preferences will ultimately determine winners and losers in the global race toward electric mobility. To stay informed about developments in this rapidly evolving situation, make sure to subscribe and enable notifications. We'll continue delivering in-depth analysis of the forces reshaping our automotive future.